Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Spider-Man PS4/PS5 unboxing and review video. Yes, today we're going to be taking a look at none other than the Spider Armor MKIV. Now you may be scratching your head thinking, Justin, wasn't this guy only announced 6 months ago? And yes, you're absolutely right, it was 6 months ago that this guy was initially announced for pre-order, but somehow he's here, yet for other figures we've been waiting almost 2 years. It's quite peculiar as to how Hot Toys decides which ones will be coming out sooner and which ones will be coming out later. There has been speculation that Hot Toys rushed this one out so it didn't cannibalize pre-orders of the classic suit, because of course they are somewhat similar. There are some subtle differences between the two, and I will point them out throughout the course of the video, but that is the running theory as to why this one was pushed out. Nevertheless, I couldn't be more excited. I love the look of this super punchy metallic look for a classic-ish style Spider-Man, plus he definitely has some tricks up his sleeve. Now I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. A link for that is in the description below. They do have him in stock and ready to ship right now, with 12-month installment plans available if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as brand new content goes live on the channel. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here of course we have the box art for Spider Armor MKIV. I really like it. It's super simple, it's in line with the rest of the line so far, and I do love the image of the game version of the suit right up here in the front. It's high gloss, it's super punchy and vibrant, and the metallic really does pop. Wrapping around the side, you can see a sort of web of images from the game itself. Now you can open it up and take a sneak peek at Spidey there, but we're here to get him out of the box. I've been incredibly excited for pretty much the entire line of PS4 Spidey figures, and this guy is no exception. He is a very classic-inspired look for Spidey, just a little bit more metallic with that sort of UV effect over the top. I can't wait to see how that Black Panther-ish display base stand does light him up. And here we have him. I have to say, first impressions are this guy looks absolutely incredible. I'm loving the punchy, vibrant look of the colors, and of course, that super high gloss metallic. This guy looks awesome. Now you can see he does come with a bunch of accessories, including down below, so what we are going to do now is get all of this stuff laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have almost all of the accessories that come with the Spider Armor MKIV. Now yes, the UV light up pylons you will be seeing in the very next clip in all of their glory. And yes, I am saying that with a little bit of sarcasm. Let's take a look at the display base first. It's fairly basic. It's a hexagonal Spider-Man style display base. It's high gloss, MKIV logo on the top, and Spider Armor MKIV on the front. You do have the various connection points for the light up pylons, and you will see them lit up later in the video. I do like, however, that around back you do now have a DC point, just like we saw with Black Panther. That means with the included USB to DC cable, you can have this thing lit up all the time. It also does have a backup 3 AAA battery compartment there. I'll just have them in there for the purposes of this video because of course can't really have it plugged in if it's rotating around, but in the display itself I'll probably have it hardwired, that way I don't have to go and keep changing batteries in the display. Now he does come with a dynamic flight pole, however it's one of the smaller and thinner ones. Usually with Spidey figures we do get the thicker, sturdier ones. I'm not exactly sure why this time we didn't. Now let's take a look at the single accessory that he does come with that he can actually interact with, aside from of course the webs. It's a little spider drone. We see these a bunch in the games, and with a bunch of the Hot Toys releases they've definitely thrown this guy in. He's fairly basic, but I like the way he's painted and sculpted, and of course you can move his little legs, so that's a nice touch. However, I do wish we'd gotten some more accessories. We've gotten a pizza, a coffee cup, a camera, and a phone. At the very least, I do believe the phone should have been included. Now let's take a look at one of the hands. They're fairly basic, but I do like the super punchy metallic vibrant red. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and you can see the web lines are indented, unlike the classic suit where they're raised. Honestly, I wish they'd went with something like this for the classic suit, but unfortunately, they didn't. Now, he does come with some interchangeable eyes. We do have the squinting ones and the more wide open ones, and then the fully wide open ones, which are already on the figure. You'll see those in just a second. I do like the super subtle honeycomb pattern on the iris there. Not sure if you can tell, but the bits that can move and close, you do have a honeycomb pattern, and when you hit it with a UV light, they really do pop. Now, he does come with the usual Spidey webs. We've seen these a bunch of times before. This one is always my favorite. It looks much more dynamic, and you can have it sort of spooled up in his hand as he's swinging through the air. And finally, to attach onto the ends of these webs, you do have the Spidey style funnel. What we are going to do now is get the UV effect pylons out here and take a closer look. And here we have the light up display base pylons for Spider Armor Mark IV. Number one, let me just remark on how cheap and nasty this entire thing feels. The bottom is made out of clam tray plastic, it's super light and flimsy. Honestly, I'd be worried about that breaking over time, and these are made out of foam core. There's foam on the inside, then printed cardboard on the outside. Super cheap, and I don't really like the way it feels, but the way it functions, you'll see a little bit later in the video, and that I'm really impressed with. So it's a bit of a catch-22. It doesn't feel super premium, but the effect that it delivers on the figure really does. So what we are going to do now is get the Spidey figure himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have him, standing straight up and down the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And I have to say, I really like him. What's not to like? It's a kind of classic-inspired look for Spidey with a little bit of a modern flair. He's metallic, he's super saturated, the colors really do pop, and you'll see that when we get to the comparisons later in the video. But for now, just know that I'm really liking how he comes across. Yes, he will still have the same flaws as the other Spidey figures. The suit material will crease, but if that doesn't bother you, I think you're going to be pretty darn happy with him, even as a stand-in for now, as a classic version of Spidey, because he technically is. He's just got, as I said, a bit of a modern flair. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal, and honestly, I love the way this guy looks. There is a lot to talk about here, even though it's a fairly basic design. First of all, I'm fairly sure this new foam padding understructure to the muscle is entirely new. It is similar to the advanced suit, granted, but it feels and looks a little bit different. It's not as broad on the front here, the definition is a little bit sharper. You will see a comparison next to the advanced suit a little bit later in the video. Now let's talk about the head sculpt itself. Number one, you can't really tell it's a different material to the suit. It's a hard plastic, this is a vinyl style material. Yes, it does feel very similar to the Infinity War Iron Spider. That may put a lot of people off, but honestly, it's kind of the only way to do this metallic sheen. You can't do it with fabric unless you're screen printing over the top of it, and then that brings a whole slew of other challenges. This, in my opinion, is the best material to make this suit out of and get the look they're going for. Don't forget there's still a UV pattern over the top here. You'll see that a little bit later. Spoiler alert, it looks absolutely awesome, but we'll save that for the end. Now, I do have to say, his eyes look like they're lit up, even though they're not. They're super punchy and super vibrant, and I love the way they look. And then when you hit them with the UV, they just glow even more so I really like the way they've done the eyes. Now, I do love the texture of the suit, specifically the blue. Take a look at the texture on there. There are a bunch of little patterns throughout the entire thing. They're kind of like squares and triangles all mashed together. It just brings the entire thing to life. There's little sort of panel lines throughout as well. It's not just a boring, flat blue. There's texture, there's detail, and it really does pop on the shelf. Now, moving down to the legs, they're fairly basic. You can see some Spidey-style boots. This is probably one of the bigger sort of differences between the classic suit and this guy. The style of the boot design is slightly more angular. Don't worry, we'll talk about that Spider logo in just a second. I do like, however, and I'll mention this later in the video in the pros and cons segment, that they fixed the ankles. They have a foam piece on the inside there. That means the suit itself isn't tucking into the joints. Thank goodness they fixed it with this Spidey release. One minor complaint, however, is the super glossy finish on the underside of the feet. That means he's a little bit tricky to stand, so just be careful when you're posing up your Spidey. Now, one of the other big differences between this guy and the classic suit is, of course, the chest logo. It's completely different. It's green, it's got this big sort of look about it with the legs going absolutely everywhere. It looks awesome, but for those of you who want this as your classic suit Spidey, it just isn't going to cut it, in my opinion. It's very clearly a different suit to the classic version. Now, for the web shooters, they are fairly basic. They can move independently of the suit and hands. That's a good thing, because that means you can sort of move the hand and then move the web shooter in position. In my opinion, that's the absolute best way to do the web shooters. And here we have the Spider Armor Mark IV fully illuminated. Now, unfortunately, it was a little bit tough to capture on camera. I've had to use my UV LED torch in addition to the display base, but trust me, in the cabinet, if you just have this display base, it's going to work perfectly fine. It looks really good. I love the honeycomb effect. I didn't think I was going to. I thought it was going to be a cheap gimmick. But now, having seen it in person, I am in love with the look of this figure. The honeycomb effect is a must-use. In my personal opinion, I probably will have the display base fully wired in the display. Now, for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the Spider Armor standing alongside the Iron Spider from the PS4 game. Honestly, I love the fact that Hot Toys were able to Trojan horse these comic classic style Spidey figures under the guise of being PS4 video game figures. It's ingenious. I'm so glad they saw the opportunity to go ahead and pick up the license and make a whole bunch of classic comic book style suits, because I know us collectors are pretty much eating it up, me included. I'm loving this entire line so far. And here we have him standing alongside Spider-Man 2099, my personal favourite, I think, so far from the PS4 game lineup. There has been quite a few, and I struggled to pick my favourite, but I still think I'm going to have to give it to 2099. There's something that's super crisp and super sleek about the design, but it's still full of details and different panels and lines and different colours. I just love the way it looks. Standing alongside Spider Armor, you can see there is a huge difference in the design, which makes sense. They are completely different styles of figures, and they are using quite similar bodies. I do believe the padding underneath, which is shared with this guy right here, looks almost identical, right down to the musculature. And honestly, I did think that it was all new for the Spider Armor figures, because that's what I've been told by other collectors. But now, seeing it in hand, they look pretty much identical, so I do believe it's using the same style of padding and body as the 2099 suit and the advanced suit figure. And here we have him standing next to Scarlet Spider, another one of my personal favourites. I love how simplistic the design is, but then again, there's also a lot going on if you look a little bit closer, including a bunch of belts and cartridges and pouches, and also that super punchy, vibrant blue vest hoodie thing. I just love the way he looks. He's also got a completely different style body to what we're seeing with the Spider Armor figure, and I like that. I know it's not technically supposed to be that way. They're all supposed to be the same because it's just a skin over a regular body in a game, but still, in figure format, I think having two separate styles of bodies works quite nicely for the line. And here we have him standing next to Spider-Punk, who again uses that different style of body, the same one as Scarlet Spider, so he's a little bit bigger, a little bit broader, and a little bit beefier, and I really like how that looks. I also really like Spider-Punk. He's definitely an underrated release, so for those of you out there who have picked up the rest of the line but not Spider-Punk, you might want to consider doing so before he gets a little bit tricky to track down, and then you're thinking, which one am I missing? And it's Spider-Punk, and you can't find him. Grab him while you can, because trust me, he's still, even though he's a little bit weird and wacky, he's still a really good release. And here we have him standing alongside the advanced suit. The biggest difference between these two has to be the saturation. Look how much deeper and richer and more vibrant the colours are on the Spider Armor figure. I love that. It brings the entire thing to life. It kind of makes the advanced suit look a little bit more desaturated than it really is, having them standing side by side. Honestly, if I had to pick between these two, even though I love the advanced suit, I am leaning more towards the Spider Armor just because I know on the shelf that thing is going to pop. And then, when you add the UV effect over the top of that, it just sets the entire thing off. Now, a couple of people have told me that it's using a different body to the advanced suit. It isn't, they're identical, the padding is exactly the same, the joints work in the exact same way, they're both ratcheted in the same places, they are pretty much underneath the suits themselves identical. So for those of you hoping that it would be a little bit more articulated, even though they can move fairly well in my personal opinion, it's not. It's the same body, and for me, that works perfectly fine. Just going over articulation with Spider Armor Mark IV. Now, bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now, starting off with the head sculpt itself, Dean Knight did initially think that this was going to be a magnetic head, and it would be super lightweight, like we saw with the Iron Spider. Luckily, it isn't. It's connected by a proper ball joint, there's a ball joint in the head, and then there's a joint in the neck as well. You can see you do get a small amount of motion out of the neck, but most of it will come out of the head itself. Rotation and pivot side to side. The arms themselves go out to about there, they go forward to about there before they start getting a little bit restricted by the outfit itself. A butterfly joint, swivel at the upper bicep, double bend there at the elbow, and a regular Spidey style joint for the wrist itself. Now the torso does have multiple joints, one up here, then one down below. Swivel, pivot, and a ratcheted crunch, which goes a significant range forward and also back. The legs themselves ratcheted to there, and the same thing going out on super tough and tight ratchets. Swivel at the upper thigh, double bend here for the knee, and of course regular Spidey style articulation for the foot itself, plus my favorite, toe articulation. The first annoying thing about Spider Armor Mark IV has to be these pylons. They're very similar to what we saw with Black Panther. They're a printed cardboard with a foam core. Honestly, it just feels cheap. Hot Toys, if you're throwing in accessories like this that have light up functions in it, make them out of plastic, at the very least that flimsy plastic you use. This just feels incredibly cheap and nasty. I don't know why foam is being used for a light up accessory, it just doesn't make sense to me personally. The second annoying thing is the fact that this is the only handheld style accessory that we get with Spidey if you don't count the webs. We don't get a phone, we don't get a coffee cup, we don't get a pizza, and we don't get a camera. I've been loving these little throw-in accessories. We've seen this guy a bunch, almost with every PS4 Spidey figure. He's come with a drone. Give us something else, something cool that we can have with our other Spidey figures, but unfortunately they didn't. We just got this drone. The third annoying thing, and honestly I don't know how annoying it'll be for a lot of people, but for me personally, this display base has this glittery effect all over the top here. It looks really good and nice and metallic like the suit itself, but now it doesn't exactly match the rest of the line. It's a completely different style. They have that sort of matte, rough texture and a little bit of gloss here and there, but none of them, as far as I'm aware, are metallic, so that means this display base stands out as not looking quite like the rest of the line. The first cool thing about the Spider Armor figure has to be the UV effect. Just look how awesome that looks. Honestly, it's something that I didn't think I was going to like, but now that I'm seeing it in person, that honeycomb effect and the spider logo just lighting up a treat, in my opinion, is kind of one of the biggest highlights of this entire piece. The second cool thing is one of my biggest long-standing complaints with Spider-Man figures. It's the weird sort of gapping that they always have at the ankles, but not here, not this time. Hot Toys have included some foam padding around the ankle joints, and now, from a distance, it's pretty much a seamless look. Yes, you can see a little bit of a crease right there where the foam does end, but honestly, I'd rather that than have the suit tuck in to the ankle joint itself. The third cool thing has to be the metallic look to the entire suit. This is very close to being a comic book style classic looking Spidey, and yes, I know this suit was seen in the comics, but I'm talking proper classic suit, like the one that we just got announced actually. It's very close to looking like that, if not for this metallic sheen. That may bother some people, but for me personally, it just ups the visual interest and makes this guy pop even more on the shelf. Just wrapping up on the Spider Armor Mark IV. Now, going into this review, I really didn't know what to expect. Yes, I have owned the previous Spidey figures, in fact I still do, and I have played the PS4 video game, so I kind of had a bit of an idea of how the suit would look and feel in person, but nothing could really prepare me for how saturated and vibrant the color scheme of this suit really is. Plus, being metallic, it just picks up the light marvelously and highlights all of that beautiful muscle definition. This thing is a feast for the eyes. If you're thinking about picking up just one Spidey figure from the video game, honestly, I'd be tempted to get this guy. I know, sacrilege to say because the advanced suit is the one on the cover of the game, but if you want something that can literally just stand in your display, you can pop on the UV effect, and when people come in, they will be talking about that one specific piece the entire time, this is it. It is super vibrant, super punchy, it's eye-catching, it has a really awesome UV effect. This guy, in my opinion, to date, is the one to have. Granted, there is more coming out from the video game, but if you just had to call it right now and pick up one from the game, this one, for me, gets my vote personally. But let me know what you think down in the comments below, because as with everything, we all have different opinions. You don't have to agree with mine, it's just the way I currently feel looking at this guy in front of me right here. It looks absolutely incredible. Now, I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is, of course, in the description below. They do have 12-month installment plans now available if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.